let me say a prayer to Prabhupada first. Mao Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitananda Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Vicharani Priyavashesha Srimivadi Pasacharya Shatare Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Bhavananda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Ram. So, how many of you know me? Met me before? Okay, so a few. All right. So, my name is Sukwaha, and I was initiated in 1975 in New Vrindavan, and I've had many services that I've done over the years, and more recently I've been in India working with the Varsana Eye Camp and Bhaktivedanta Hospital, and I've written a few books. The first was on compassion. I don't know if any of you have ever seen that. And then I just wrote a couple more over the COVID time, the last 2 years. Just one more. That's good. And that was my 2-year, that was a little loud, my 2-year COVID project. And I'm a mother of 3, and I have 3 grandchildren. So I've been through a lot of experiences. How many of you are married?
Everyone is married.
Everybody's married, okay. I thought this was a youth group. Is it a congregational group?
It's a youth congregation. Youth congregation.
Okay, that was confusing to me. Somehow I thought it was the youth forum, so that would be all boys. But now it's a youth congregation, so you're young and married, yes? So, since we only have a short time, I know you have busy lives and you weren't expected to stay very late. I'm just wondering if you just want to ask questions rather than me talking. Let's make it relevant. You just ask your questions, you're Grihsthas, and maybe you have some questions to ask. And you're all going to be shy because you're expecting me to do all the talking. Grihstha is an important ashram. How long have you all been married? Between 1 and 5 years?
It's almost 1 to 5 months.
1 to 5.
Almost 1 to 5.
Okay, so that's kind of new.
7 years.
7 years, oh my gosh, you're
Not even completed 1 year.
not even completed 1 year.
So less than 1 year, more than 5 years.
Okay, all right. So, what's your experience of being a Grihstha, and what are your challenges in balancing your Grihstha life and your spiritual life and all of that? I want to speak to you in relevant ways, but okay.
Mataji, what happens is at times when you try to balance your professional life, then your personal life gets disturbed, and then you try to manage your social life, and then some other part, your health gets disturbed, So it's some or other, one needs more attention. So at that time, it becomes little difficult to manage, to perform devotional service.
For sure. Now, a lot of times householders think of spiritual life as something that you do at the temple, or specifically sadhana and reading and what you do at the temple. Sometimes that's what you consider spiritual life, right? And everything else is my material life. Something like that? Yes?
Yeah.
I'd like to say that in one sense, you can't separate yourself from your spiritual life because you're part and parcel of Krishna. So everything you're doing is really training and developing you in, training and developing you how to be human, how to be kind, how to have relationships. It's all training. Your work, your home life, and it seems that in India there's quite a lot of social life, isn't there?
Yes.
It takes a lot of time too. So, yeah, and then you try to push all those things and then you start getting sick and then you can't do anything. So how to balance all of that? Well, what do you think are the priorities? Let's hear from all of you. What are the priorities?
Of course, the spiritual life is the priority. The sadhana is the priority. But at times when you try to balance it out, then the other priorities, other life requires more time. Then some or other, then your schedule gets disturbed and then.
How many of you are initiated? Okay. You've taken that big step. Krishna's a kind person. He already knows how intense it is to be a soul in a human machine. It's the most challenging birth there is, human birth, because an animal may have to run from a predator, but the animal's not thinking, oh, that predator doesn't like me, that predator's mean. He just runs.
Yeah.
He's not all entangled in an emotional upset about the predator. But in human life, the benefit is that we have the ability to reflect, and the challenge is that we have the ability to reflect. So when we reflect, a lot of times our mind, which is a meaning-making machine, tends to tell us lots of stuff, which gets us, it complicates the situation. So, again, I like to say that I think all of your life is part of your spiritual life, and I think you just have to do the best you can. I mean, devotional service is not just what you do at the temple. And your rounds, when you're married and have kids and working, may have to be on the way to work. In between things, it may have to be that way for a while just because there's so many things going on. So maybe the quality may not be there exactly at this point in time, but the desire for the quality and the commitment can be there. However, when we feel like our family is an impediment to our devotional life, that can cause serious consequences. If our children or our spouse feel that they're an impediment, that is going to scar them for life. If our children or our spouse find that we're running to the temple or avoiding us and shutting down because we have to do so much sadhana, and then not spending time in connecting, it may wear on the relationships. Have any of you experienced that at all? Maybe you don't want to say, but just think about if you've experienced that at all. In my life, I did that. I thought I was a good devotee, and I worked really hard for the temple, and I put my children with other parents so that I could go out and collect full-time, collect money. And then they went with other mothers, and then they went to the Gurukula. And I only got to see them probably less than 30 days those 30 days were all kind of cleaning, doing laundry, rushing around, being stressed out, and then trying to get spiritually enlivened to go back out again. So it makes a child or a spouse feel like you don't care for me. You care about Krishna more. And when a spouse or child feels that way, then they may not like Krishna very much because Krishna took my parent or my spouse away. So that's something to think about. Now, one time there was a woman when Prabhupada was alive, and she wanted to put her child with somebody else so that she could do deity worship. Sounds like a reasonable thing. And Prabhupada told her, your child is your deity. There are many services, but there's only one mother and one father. One blood mother and one blood father. There's only one. Nobody else can really do that service. I mean, sometimes we employ others to do that service, but the child always really hankers for the time and attention of parents. And you can't really outsource that loving relationship with your kid. It doesn't work. So, balance takes honesty. Honesty. What can I do and what can't I do? What are my priorities and what things will I have to put off? Maybe for 5 or 10 years. What things am I going to have to put off for a long time? I mean, I had to put off going to Srimad Bhagavatam class for years because in the old days, if a child made a noise, and I'm not talking about these kids here, but if a child made a pee, we had to go out immediately, like 1 second. No one would tolerate it. So I forego going to class for a long time, and I was always thinking, when will that day be that I can go to class sometime? So sometimes we go through periods like that, where we can't maybe do some of the things we want. We can't read as much. When I was a young devotee, we lived under the principle, work now, samadhi later. And we were even told that too much reading of the scripture was sense gratification. Seriously. So I didn't read very much. And I would pray to Krishna, and I said, Krishna, there's a verse in the scripture that for one who has implicit faith in Guru and Krishna, all the imports of the Vedas will be revealed. Have you ever heard that verse? So I said to Krishna, okay, Krishna, I'm going to put my faith in you and Krishna and Guru, and you're going to have to reveal some of the imports because I don't have time to read. So the balance is really about being, not avoiding responsibility, but taking on the responsibility, not in a begrudging way, but in a loving way. Nobody wants to be begrudged, especially a child or a spouse. How can we develop our loving partnership with our spouse and spend time with our kids? That's like the most important thing. Most important thing. Nobody else can do it. And the first 5, 10, and 15 years, the first 15 years of a child's life, you can't replace them. It's like when the child gets programmed. And then they're programmed. That's their default program for life. You can't, they can reprogram, but it takes a lot of consciousness. And children that grow up to be the most mature are the ones who have attached relationships with their parents, attachment is natural and healthy for a child and a family. When a child is young, it's actually natural. Now again, back in the day, we were taught to renounce our kids as soon as they were born, pretty much, and anybody who wanted to take care of their own kid was deemed sentimental. And yeah, there was a lot of, and there was a lot of kids that felt neglected, and some were even abused. So, how to balance? We have to be honest. Some people can balance more things than others. It's just a fact. So you really have to be honest. How much can I really balance? And if I can't balance all this, what can I put aside for some years? Maybe I want to do something, but can I put that aside for 5 or 10 years? Maybe, I was talking to some mothers in Mumbai for a while, and they said, I gotta go to this birthday party, and this birthday party, and this birthday party. I said, why? It's like a lot of time and effort just going to birthday parties. I mean, you want to honor the other children, but I said, why not have like one birthday party a month for everybody? And just, instead of like every week have 1 or 2 birthday parties. It's too much. It's overwhelming. And we have to get creative as Grihsthas. We have to be creative of how to make it work. It actually takes it takes a lot more wherewithal to be a Grihstha than it does to be a brahmachari. I'm sorry. We have this thing that brahmacharis are better than Grihsthas. I don't know if you guys have that, but sometimes it's a little there. If you're wearing saffron, we have to worship you. But actually, they may have it a little easier. They don't have to get a job. They don't have to manage a family. Yeah. And you guys are doing all that. So, you want to be honest, and Krishna is a loving person. We could say he's a loving God, but he's even a loving person. So, he understands what you're going through. Maybe even better than you understand what you're going through. He understands it. And he knows you're doing the best you can. And then you could be creative and say, well, what could I cut out to give me more time? What could I say no to so I don't have so much stress, so I don't throw that stress on my spouse and my kids? You gotta just be honest and be creative and just, ask those questions. And it takes a wherewithal to do that. But you're all intelligent. The thing that really kind of befuddles our intelligence is when we have people that aren't in our family situation telling us what we should or shouldn't do, telling us how much we should or shouldn't read, how many hours of service we should or shouldn't do. And some of them might even be in saffron. Only you can really determine what you can do. You're intelligent. You're intelligent. You can determine what you can and can't do. And if you can be honest, you just say, well, I'm sorry, I can't do that right now. Doesn't mean you don't love Krishna. Doesn't mean you're not a devotee. It means you're being honest. And honesty is right there next to humility. It may be a little embarrassing. Maybe if we can't do all those things that we think we want to do or that we think we should do, maybe it's a little embarrassing. And for men, dishonor is worse than death. So we don't want any dishonor. So then we say yes, 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 yes. And then we say yes to stress. Yeah. So, but honesty and integrity are such valuable tools to help us to keep our balance. I know for myself, in the last almost 20 years, I've been practicing integrity, and it helps me a lot because I honor my word, and it means planning ahead. It means if you can't be to a place on time, then calling and saying that we're going to be late. It means, doing what you say you're going to do by when you say you're going to do it. So I always find that if I start forgetting things or spacing out, I recognize I'm taking on too much. I'm not able to manage it. I'm putting it on my calendar and I'm turning off my phone and I'm not hearing the alarms. I have too much. It's too much. I'm not able to manage it. So then I don't say yes to anything until I kind of clear out my schedule a little bit. Integrity is a big helpful tool to keep us honest. And honesty is next to humility, and we can only really chant in a humble state of mind. That's the real chanting that we want to do in a humble state of mind. So did I answer your question okay?
Yes. So we have to say, depending upon what we have to say, we just can't be a yes man,
Do not be a yes man. It doesn't work. Except to your children and your wife, but not everything. But yes, to your children and your wife, that is your job. That is your job, to be there for them. They're depending on you. And you're the only pop, you're the only dad. Nobody else is going to do that service, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And it's a very, very valuable service because when you invest in your children, oh my gosh, it's more than any strict Gurukula program can provide. Just that love and that care, and that they know you're there for them, and they know you love them. It takes them, it gives them a solid support throughout their entire life if they have that when they're young. And if they don't have it when they're young, they may be insecure a lot of their life. Something to think about. So really, it's up to you to really figure it out. Don't say yes. Don't be a yes man. Don't be nice. Be real. Be honest. If people ask me to do something, and I can't, I usually say, well, I understand your project is important to you, and I would like to help you with something that I think is important. But if I say yes to you, then I'm not going to be able to honor all the other people I already said yes to. And I'm really not going to be able to honor you the way you need to be honored in your project. And so then I'm not really being honest. So I have to say no. And if we started saying no, I'm imagining maybe people would start taking on less and start making such big projects. Because if somebody has a big project and then they, what do you call that? Give all the services out to other, and then the other ones who have all these services give them out to others, and it's creating a system of pressure. I have this big idea. Let's do this, okay? You do this, 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 and then we spread out the stress and the pressure. What about our own projects? What about our own life? It's important. I think ISKCON and temples have a lot of stuff already, but nobody can replace your service as father and mother. And it's part of your spiritual life. It is. It's a very important. You can learn a lot from your kids. Patience. And when they get a little older, they'll start pointing out where you're being hypocritical. Don't worry, it happens. Yeah, they're there to help you, and you're there to help them. It's a very important relationship.
So Machi, one thing is like communication is one thing here, but then what if I mean, of course, being honest to something like this, it's like equality as you mentioned. So here the point is, then you have this thing that you'll be judged.
You will be judged.
You'll be judged by people. They'll have their different opinions.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And even sometimes your authorities or someone maybe very senior to you will end up thinking like, oh, I may want you to give this particular person this service, but whenever his life or her life is the priority. So how?
Well, human beings are judgers. Our mind is a meaning-making machine. Animals don't have that. Human beings do judge. They do. However, if I am clear on the inside and committed and aligned with my own soul and what I have for my life, if I'm committed to that, if people say what they say what they say. If I make it mean something about me, that means maybe I kind of believe what they're saying. If they say, oh, you're just selfish, you just care about your family. If I don't have a lot of self-worth, I might doubt myself, and then I might kind of believe what they say. But if it's like, no, my family is important. Nobody else can do this service. And we're thinking of Krishna. We have our little program at home, and we're doing the best we can. And if somebody outside of our family doesn't understand, or they don't appreciate what we're doing, why are we making that our problem?
So what happens normally you're being judged in such a way people say like, oh Prabhu, you have disappeared. Before getting married you were so very much visible.
Yeah, I have a wife and kids now, and I'm taking that as a serious service because nobody else can do that service. My kids are young, I'm taking that as a serious service. That doesn't mean I'm not doing service. I do service. Krishna consciousness is about the consciousness with which we're doing things, not the place where we're doing service. It's not that service only happens in the temple buildings. I'm sorry, that is not correct. That's not correct. Now, we do have this kind of structure. I know, I grew up in it for 27 years. People who lived outside the temple were called fringies. They're on the fringe. They're in Maya. But I'm working in a temple. I'm a good devotee. That's what I thought for 27 years. I was doing all the right things, pushing myself while I had kids and a family. And when I hit menopause at the age of 47, all of my suppressed emotions came up. All of my anger, my frustration, and I couldn't control it. And then I was like, thanks a lot, Krishna. I wanted to kill myself. I was like, wait, I should be pure by now. Come on. I did all the right things. It's not an external process. It's not how much money you can collect, how many hours of physical service you can put in. It's not an external process. It's actually an internal process. It's transforming our consciousness. That's really what a Krishna consciousness is. In the beginning days, Prabhupada told people you don't have to change your life, just put Krishna in your life. You don't have to change it. There's one man named Peter Burwash. Did anybody ever hear Peter Burwash? Yeah. Not too many people have heard of him. But he spent quite a lot of time with Prabhupada, and Prabhupada instructed him. He was a tennis instructor, an international tennis instructor. And Prabhupada just said, you just insert Krishna consciousness in your life. And he did, and he had a corporation. And everybody in his corporation, they didn't know that he was a devotee. He didn't tell anybody he was a devotee. He never got initiated. But he followed Prabhupada's instructions so much more than some people that I know. Everyone in his company was a vegetarian. No one smoked or took intoxication. He had that high degree of integrity, but everybody loved him because he really cared compassionately for the people who worked for him. He didn't just snap his fingers and tell them what to do. He actually had healthy relationships. He was following Prabhupada's instructions. But then people say, oh, well, he wasn't initiated, and he's not going to go back to God. And how do we know? Krishna makes the rules. How do we know? So, giving advice, I did that for a long time. I thought I was a good devotee and I thought I knew what to do, and I gave a lot of advice. Not that I don't ever give advice. However, pressurizing and pushing people in this world when we're already, just being a soul in a human machine is stressful. It's stressful. And then we're going to be devotees, so we're going to swim upstream. That's stressful. And then we're in Delhi with all this traffic and people and smog. And, oh my gosh, that's stressful. And then the temple people are like saying, what's wrong with you? You disappeared. Wow, that's stressful too. You could just say, it's temporary, I'm working.
It's enough, you're working for last so many years.
Say
or so
again.
many good months now.
Yeah, just say, I'm doing the best I can, and I think my family is a priority. Nobody else can do that service for me. Would you like to take care of my kids for a while? I'll come to the temple and take care of my kids. How about that? Trade. Seriously, it's important. Kids require a lot of time and attention. They thrive on attention. They want to be heard, they want to be seen, and they want to be understood. How many of you want to be heard and understood and seen? Right. So you want to at least provide that for your kids so maybe they're not raising their hand 20 years from now. I just want to say I really honor and respect what you're going through. And I understand the kind of like the conflict. It's like a conflict because you want to honor and respect the temple authorities, and you want to honor and respect them. But that doesn't mean you dishonor and disrespect yourself and your family. That doesn't work. It has to be both. Now, sometimes, if we don't have a lot of self-worth, we may look to others outside of us for validation. And if we get some validation from someone who has some status in the movement, oh, that means I'm really good. My guru said this and this about me, so that means, wow, I'm a good devotee. He smiled at me, I'm a good devotee. I thought I was a good devotee. And after 27 years, I realized, I kind of missed the point. It's not an external process. It's really about transforming our consciousness. It's not an external process. I worked as hard as every brahmachari, even harder, because I had kids. I collected. I renounced my kids. And after all that time, I realized that my relationships were a mess. A mess. Yeah, I don't want to tell you all the neglect that I did. But the good news is that it's never too late to shift our consciousness, and we can learn from our mistakes, and we can also learn from other people's mistakes. And so I have written these books, and some of my mistakes are in here, because it's really tough when you're 47 years old and find out that you kind of missed the point. You are all young. I don't want you to have to do what I did and learn the same lesson 20 years later. I want to share with you, what's really helped me to have, connecting relationships with my family and with the devotees. I wouldn't be sitting here in front of you if I didn't do that work with my family. I now have very good relationships with my children, and I have 3 grandchildren, and I have good relationships with them also. And it's because I now have a good relationship with myself. One time I felt like I was going to lose everything. That was when I went through that breakdown. So I went and did all this stuff to fix myself. I got to fix myself. But Krishna was so kind. I didn't fix myself. I found myself. And then that was a pretty amazing discovery. So, just talk a little bit about the books, because I don't want to take too much of your time, but there's a lot in these books. This first book is about the mind and the false ego. I'm sorry?
We can extend till 8:30.
Okay, we'll do that. Let me just talk about these things, and then we'll see if there's more questions. And you can see, here's the 2 birds in the heart, right? Krishna, and then the soul. And then the jiva soul here, he's kind of on his autopilot, kind of spaced out, right? He's got his default eyes. I really think that we know more about our computers and our cell phones than we know about our human machinery. And the mind and the false ego are so subtle. It's our software programming. Yeah. But if you don't know about software programming, you're kind of like my 2-year-old granddaughter who goes like this, trying to make the thing work, and, she might delete something because she's just pushing buttons and she doesn't know what she's doing. It's kind of how we are operating a little bit in our own human machine. It's a very sophisticated machine. It's an amazing machine. We don't really know much about it. So this tells us about, I give names for the subtle aspects of the false ego. A lot of times, we compare the false ego to an iceberg, right? So the tip of the iceberg is sticking out of the water. So we say, okay, yeah, I have a little false ego. But there's a lot in the unconscious under the water that we don't even know about. And if we can't get to the root of it, this little tip is never going away. It's not going to go away. So this is about the mind and false ego, and this book is about the anarthas. And I list 12 anarthas. And the first anartha, do you know what the first thing is that Lord Brahma created in the world? The first thing he created? Well, yes. Specifically, self-deception. The false ego is all self-deception. We have to deceive ourselves that we're not a soul to be a false ego. And so, it starts with self-deception. And these books really, you can see on this cover, the 2 birds are now looking at each other, and the Jivatma recognizes that Krishna's there. Maybe he's listening and talking to Krishna. And the branch is also growing. He's growing now. So I do advocate there's a really important relationship with Krishna in our heart. And, I put some of this in these books. These books are written in the form of a story. It's a conversation between 3 devotees, and it's allegorical, and there's some acronyms in it too. So it's kind of easy enough to read and digest, and then it's also very deep. So you'll get certain things, and maybe certain things you won't get. But I put a lot in here, understanding that. I really do feel, these are specifically for devotees. We spend a lot of time bringing in new devotees. But then what about the devotees who've been around for a while? What do we do with them? And then when they're having a hard time, what do we do with them? How do we help them? When I was having a hard time, the people in the temple would say to me, "You're in Maya. And I'm like, no kidding. You think I don't know him in Maya? I know him in Maya. Can you tell me something to help me through this? Can you help me through this? They had no clue. All they could do was repeat cliches. Chant Hare Krishna, be happy, do service, work hard. They've been doing that for 27 years. What happened? Nobody had a clue. And I feel like, when we're in devotional service for a while, there's a point in time when Krishna says, okay, it's time to grow up, it's time to graduate. And he wants us to shed part of our attachment to certain parts of our ego. And it's an identity crisis, kind of. So it takes something to do that. And in these books, I offer some ways that we can work on these things. I also offer that the mind and the false ego and the anartas are actually they're meant and they're trying to fulfill certain needs for us, but they're not. They're just a quick fix thing. And so if we can actually get the message of what they're trying to provide for us, we could actually be creative and think of other ways to provide those needs. So it's kind of like we're looking to exercise our spiritual muscles. Like if you've been in the hospital for a long time in bed, you may lose your ability to walk. Right? So even as an adult, thank you. It's okay. Go ahead. So we may have to, it's okay, don't be worried about it. All right, thank you, you figured it out. We may have to learn how to walk again. That's called physiotherapy. Well, how long have we been in this material world hospital? And our spiritual muscles are weak. But instead of being kind and compassionate to ourselves and finding out just how to exercise these muscles, we beat ourselves up. Here's pure devotion and here I am. I shouldn't be here. I should be here. I shouldn't be here. I should be here. I shouldn't be here. I should be here. Right? How many of you feel that way? Okay. So tell me, where am I? No. Where am I?
It's in between.
Huh?
It's in between.
Not really. We wish it was in between. Nowhere. We are actually nowhere. We're nowhere. Because we're resisting where we really are. We're really here. But we're resisting it. So we push away all the blessings. We push away the experiences. We hate it. And that creates inner friction and outer friction. And then from nowhere, we're not on the ground, we're floating. We can't take a real step. We can't take a real step. We can do a lot of things that makes you think you're taking steps. For 27 years, I thought I was making a lot of advancement. After 27 years, I realized, oh my gosh, wow. I got to start all over again here. I didn't even know how to talk. There were only two ways I knew how to talk. Either you tell me what to do and I do it. Yes, ma'am. Or I tell you what to do and you do it. What else do we need to talk about? Service, Prabhu, service. That's it. I didn't know how to talk. Seriously. So, we want to be kind to ourselves. Compassion. Okay, I don't know, little kids when they're 1 year old, I don't know, some of you may not have kids, but when a 1 year old's trying to walk, right? Can you imagine if they're wobbling, maybe they take a step and they fall. Oh, you are so weak, you're so fallen. Gosh, come back when you can run. Don't waste my time, come on. Would we say that to the child? But we say that to this child here, this spiritual child that's trying to learn how to walk again on the spiritual path. We're trying to exercise our spiritual muscles that are somewhat weak. It doesn't mean we're weak. It doesn't mean we're bad. It just means we need some exercise. But we beat ourselves up when we're not like up here immediately. And then we can't really take the next step because we're so focused that we should be there. We can't even look ahead to see what's the next thing where's the next place I could go to get closer to there. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's kind of what we do. Okay, so it's 10 after 8. So now that I've spoken a little bit, let me hear what you have to say.
Mataji, I have another question.
Please.
That while taking care of the family, as a devotion service, and the kids are their very prime age from 1 to 15, as you told. But in the raising the kids in the Krishna conscious way, first teaching them how to be disciplined, how to be mannered, and these things.
How to be mannered, is that what you said?
Yes. It takes a lot of toll. Like they keep insisting, a lot of tantrums and these how to manage. Because earlier people used to beat or used to side, but nowadays there is a shift in the consciousness of the people.
Thank you.
They don't.
Beating doesn't work, but then we beat them with our words. Right? That's a different kind of beating. That hurts too. So, I'm not saying you do, but the best way we can teach our children is by modeling it. If we're kind and compassionate, that's what our kids will learn. If we're pushy and demanding, and you need to be mannered, well, they're going to end up being like that too. When they get to be a teenager, you need to be quiet. You need to shut up, Dad. They may not say that, but maybe they would. Because they're learning your mannerisms. They're learning your tone of voice. That's what they're learning. They don't learn by what you tell them. They learn by how you treat them. Think about your teachers in school. Remember a teacher that you really liked and one that you really hated. Now, do you remember what they taught you? No, but you remember how they treated you, right? Yes, that stays in there. Same with your kids. The way you treat them is how they will learn to treat others. Another thing is sometimes we expect kids to be, we don't understand their developmental stages. Like 2-year-olds are in a stage of finding their autonomy and their independence. So they naturally say no, because they're learning that they have a little voice. Now, if you say you're naughty and you're bad and you don't listen, they're not going to understand that. They're going to hear like, my parents don't like me. Look, they're yelling at me. They don't like me. A child can't do a don't if you say, don't jump on the bed. Have you noticed that immediately they jump on the bed? Do you know why that is? It's not because they're bad. It's because they're trying to do what you're telling them to do, and they don't know what the word don't means. They just hear, jump on the bed. So they're jumping on the bed, and then you slap them, and then they're like, what? You just told me to jump on the bed. They don't know what don't means. They don't know that. They're not sophisticated enough to understand the negative. So you want to talk to them in positive language. The bed is for sleeping. If you want to jump on the floor. The floor is for jumping. Oh, okay. They'll jump on the floor. They won't have a problem with that. But they're confused because they're trying to get what you're telling them to do. And all they hear is jump on the bed. Using positive language. Don't fidget. Put your hands in your pocket. Fold your hands. if you have a lot of energy, run around the house. Like a kid can't stop their energy level. They have energy. They're designed that way. That's why we usually have our kids when we're a little young, so we can keep up with them. They have a lot of energy. So you want to engage that energy positively. So really, and trying to train them in Krishna consciousness and forcing things upon them. Oh my gosh. I forced my kids, and my kids were forced, and they were in the Gurukula. And, they were forced to chant, and chanting became almost like a punishment. Almost like a punishment. Seriously. Seriously. You want your kids to do things out of love, out of fun, not because they should. You need to chant this many rounds. It's like, maybe they will when they're young, when they're like between 5 and 8. They're a little bit more submissive because they want your love and your approval. So, oh, you're such a good boy, you're chanting. What happens when he doesn't want to chant? Well, now you're a bad boy or a bad girl? They want your love, no matter what they do. So that's why we need to these books are about self-reflection. We need to look inside of ourselves. How am I treating myself? Because when I treat myself, is that all you can do? Is that the best you can do? When I treat myself like that, I have a tendency to treat others like that too. Unconsciously. And not necessarily intentionally, but automatically. That's my mode. And this soul in here, this is the hardest one to be compassionate towards. Because we know all our fallibilities. But we identify with those fallibilities and we think that we're bad. We judge ourselves. Talking about judgment. We judge ourselves. And then we can only take so much, and then we just judge others. So when we can learn to be compassionate and loving and kind to this soul in here, it's like, that's so great. And then you want others to feel that way too. You want to treat them with respect. You know they're going through a hard time. You know how hard it is for you. And you be kind to them. It really works. It really works. Does that make sense? I'll answer your question in a second. If you notice, at a certain point, you'll start hearing the kids saying what you say. And you're like, oh my gosh. Right? Whoops. They learn by modeling you. So you want to be really conscious what you're saying, your tone of voice, and what your general mindset is about them.
If we say them, you are a bad boy, then they repeat, you are a bad boy.
Yeah. And we already, as a soul trapped in a human machine, we already have that guilt and shame that I screwed up here, I'm in the material world again, I am bad. We already have that. So when somebody points that out to us and judges, where'd you disappear to? You're bad. It hurts. Yeah. Thank you for your good question. Okay, please, Mama.
Mataji, I have two questions.
Okay.
The first question is that when we hear things about kindness, treating oneself and others with compassion, it sounds very nice and practical, and it feels that yes, we should be doing this. But when we are dealing in the actual world, and there are so many people, someone is bombarding with so many questions and different statements which are hurting us, then it feels like I cannot be kind more. It is just done. It's just done. I cannot go beyond that.
Exactly.
So how to remain constant with this thought that no, even if the person is angry with me, even if the person is not rating nice, the situation is not favorable, I still need to have the emotion of kindness and compassion and peace inside me. How to?
Yeah, so start being kind to yourself first. When they're saying all this stuff and you can't take it because it's too much, you say, I need to excuse myself from this person. I can't take this. I can't take this. It's really triggering me. It's hurting me. And then you can just say, can we talk about this another day? I have to go. Excuse yourself. Don't necessarily react to them, but don't try to falsely be kind to them. Be kind to yourself first. It's like, I gotta put a boundary up here. This person is really hurting me. Now, another thing it does to be with other people, it helps you to understand where your pain is. It helps you to understand maybe where your muscle isn't so strong. So when people criticize me, I feel really bad. Well, maybe I feel bad inside already, and they're triggering that. So then let me look at that part of myself that feels really bad. And when did I get that? When did I design it? It's part of the ego system. I named 6 different false egos. So it's very intricate, and it's pretty scientific. But we don't look at that. We're operating blindly. Think about if you had like a little drone. You didn't know how to operate. You're just pushing the buttons. You're going to run into the wall. You're going to hit people. You're going to hurt people. That's pretty much how we're operating on a daily basis. We have no clue what's going on inside. We can use other people's triggering us not to be kind to them. First, you got to be kind to yourself. You got to say, that doesn't feel good. I don't know if I want to be with that person. And you can say, what's going on inside of me? What is it that I need? What didn't I get when I was a little kid? What is that triggering me? It reminds me of my mother. She yelled at me all the time, and I could, So those things from the outside will be more like messages for you rather than that you have to be kind to them. You can't be kind to anybody until you're first kind to yourself. And that's not just like a once and done thing. Okay, I'm kind to myself. Now I gotta totally be kind to everybody else. No, it's a daily, regular thing. Am I getting enough sleep? Am I eating properly? Is my job stressing me out? And then when we're more conscious, we come home and we say, look, I had a really rough day today. So I know we planned on doing something else, but I'm really stressed. Can we do that another night? Being really clear and honest about what's going on inside of me, at least to our spouse. We may not be able to do it to everybody, but we'll be able to have that conversation with ourselves and understand our own machinery. I can't take this. I can't do this. And then we're going to be honest. Does that make sense? Yeah. Because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to be kind to everybody, and our battery is on low. That's another thing about the human machine. When our computer shows up, you need to plug this in because the battery's on low. We plug it in. But when our human machine says, my battery's on low, we push it even harder. We push the adrenaline system. It's a backup emergency system, right? So we push it. Now, the adrenaline system is meant for emergencies. But in this day and age, I'd say probably almost every day is an emergency. And we're pushing our adrenaline system. We're stressing our immune system. And we're getting addicted to adrenaline. So then when we're addicted to adrenaline, we create more exciting things because then we got the adrenaline flowing and we feel that we got our fix of adrenaline. I'm not kidding you. We get addicted to these chemicals in our body. But if we understand them and understand what's going on, we can do things differently. We can reprogram our brain. Honestly, neuroplasticity. Krishna created an amazing machine. We can even change our mindset. But it takes consciousness to know what's going on. How does that sound? Yeah. You're all intelligent. And you all have good hearts. Now, all you have to do is integrate that and understand what's going on inside of us, and we can be very powerful parts and parcels of Krishna. Not because somebody tells us to do this many hours of service, but because from our heart, we know what we want, and we focus on our priorities, and then we can create something really wonderful for Prabhupada. And maybe it might take 10 or 15 years to get there. Prabhupada's life was a lifetime in preparation. Lifetime in preparation, excuse me. He didn't live in the temple. He didn't live in the ashram. He did what he could, but he mostly was working. Prabhupada. Excuse me. Now, he did try to help us by telling us the mistakes he made. However, most of us do a gradual process. It's more like a step-by-step process. And we really do need to go through all of these aspects to really deeply understand the precious gift of consciousness. So, nobody's in your body but you. Nobody's responsible for you going back to Godhead but you. Nobody. The time of death, it's you and Super Soul. People may be around you or they may not be around you. But you're responsible for your consciousness. And the next is your family. Those are your prime duties. Nobody else is going to chant your rounds for you. Nobody else is going to make you Krishna conscious. You have to choose it and do it yourself. And then you support your family by being Krishna conscious. The best thing you can do for your family is to be Krishna conscious. And then when you're Krishna conscious, then they naturally pick that up. Does that make sense? Okay, we have 5 minutes left. Please.
Thank you. I have one more question.
Okay.
In addition to his statement when he was talking about dealing with kids, so how to handle the negative emotion? What is the most effective way to handle the negative emotions of a child, especially when the child is 2 to 3 years, when we are not in the position to talk in a mature philosophical way.
Okay, I got your question. Thank you. I don't tend to use the word negative emotions, okay? Because emotions are simply trying to give us information, right? When we're angry, or when our child's angry, it could be because a need was not met, right? They wanted to play, and you said it's time to go. But did you prepare them? Did you tell them we're going to go now? We're going to go in 5 minutes. Prepare yourself. We're going to go. Or did you just say, let's go? And they're like, wait a minute, you just interrupted my fun. They're going to throw fits like you didn't even tell me. You didn't even prepare me. Now they still might fight, and you can just empathize with them. I know you want to have fun. And we have to do something else. But we'll come back and we'll play with them again another day. Something. You want to understand them. When you understand them, that's going to help them. In this thing here is a card, and it says, feelings when needs are not met. That's what you would call negative emotions. We all have them, and the intent of the emotions is it just means something inside is not being taken care of. And it's like a message on the dashboard of the car. Gas, oil, your temperature's going up. Do we ignore those signals? No, but we push these emotions down. We push them down and we ignore them. And then our body gets sick because it doesn't go away. It's all connected. The good news is we can practice day by day to be conscious. Please, one more question.
Mataji, do you believe that kids of the age, particularly kids of the age 4 to 10 years old kids, do you believe that all of their demands or
cannot be fulfilled.
mischievous activities?
Okay, let's just say they have a lot of energy and they like to play.
Yeah, so my question is, can all of that be dealt with compassion, kindness, or sometimes they need a little
Just like
chastisement.
I'd say it depends on how stressed out the parents are. Are they capable of being compassionate? Now, one thing you can say is, I love you, and it's time to go to bed. And the more that you do things at a regulated time, it really helps a child, because it's time to go to bed. Okay, I love you, and you know, screen time is over. We have screen time from this time to this time, and it's 6 o'clock. If you do it regulated, it's easier for them to get the message. But if you do it different every day, then they're going to throw more tantrums. And when they throw tantrums, and then you do whatever they say just to get them to stop crying, you're actually teaching them, if they cry enough, they'll get their way. So you really want to be conscious. What do you say to them? You really want to be conscious. What are you telling them? What are you saying to them? You know, it takes a lot of consciousness to take care of a child. You know, so that means you got to be present, and you got to be present to yourself. So when you say their demands can be fulfilled, there's wants and there's needs. Like, I want ice cream. Okay, that's a want. Now maybe they want a sweet or they want a treat. So, you know, can you be giving them treats that are healthier, or can you say once every 2 weeks we'll get ice cream? Can you fulfill them, but not on demand, in a regulated way, so that they know they'll get their needs fulfilled, but they have to wait until this time or this day or like that. You work it out. You honor and respect it. One time my daughter, I think she was, I don't know, 7 or 8, and she said, I want some candy, I want some candy, I want some candy. And I said, Suki, control yourself. Control yourself, right? And she said, I can't. And then I got it. She couldn't. So I said, okay, I'll get some, but don't eat them all at once. Just eat a little at a time. So, you know, we really want to be able to work with them. We can talk to them somewhat like adults. They're intelligent. And if we're really trying to honor and respect them, they'll get that. They'll appreciate that. That's a whole other topic, kids. But first of all, you got to work on yourselves. Otherwise, you're going to be frustrated. So I will sign books if any of you want to get them. I have 10 or 11 sets in here. It's 800 rupees for the 2 books. And I have a scan code. If you don't have any cash, I have a scan code. You got to get both parts, part 1 and part 2, because it's really one story. You got to get both parts. They're based on each other. It used to be one book, and they told me to divide them in 2. So, but you got to get both parts. Yeah, and I'll sign them for you if you want. And I really think that, you know, I really put a lot of time and effort in 2 years. I put into writing these books. So I put as much as I possibly could, because I don't want everybody to have to go through what I went through and not learn.
Mother, slightly out of context question.
Okay.
Just wanted to ask since the beginning. I never heard this name. I want to know the meaning of your name and
My name?
Yeah, and how to really pronounce it properly.
Sukwaha.
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 And what does it mean?
Sukha means happiness, and Vaha means the bringer or the increaser of happiness.
Sorry?
The bringer of happiness or the increaser of happiness.
And it refers to some person
It's a
or
name, I think it's a name of Barbara.
it's a name of it.
Yeah, Sukwaha. Yeah, so anybody who wants a set, please let me know. I'll sign. Yeah, I'll sign. Go ahead. And then just tell me the time that it went through, because I have to write it down. I have this book open, so I'll sign this one. You want to tell me your name? Come up here.
My name is Shrikant.
Shrikant. Shrikant or Shrikant?
Shrikant, Srikant.
I think you'll like it because there's a lot